Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's deeply personal but often kind of kept quiet. Female masturbation.
Yeah.
You shared Jenny Block's The Ultimate Guide to Solo Sex, and it has that foreword by Betty Dodson. Seemed like a great source to, explore together.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the physical act, though we'll definitely get into the practical stuff.
Right.
Our goal is more to unpack what solo pleasure really means for women, look at how society's viewed it historically and now,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe trace some of those shifts in thinking over time. Think of it as us just sort of distilling the key stuff from Block's work.
Exactly. Like your quick guide to getting really informed on this. We're going to dive into the big ideas, maybe tackle some common
Yeah,
misconceptions,
clear those up.
and hopefully offer some, fresh perspectives. And a great place to start is with Betty Dodson's viewpoint, right? From the forward.
That's right. She looks back at her own work in the 70s, which was pretty groundbreaking.
Oh, definitely.
Advocating for masturbation openly back then, it felt, well, almost revolutionary, she says. It's wild to think how taboo it really was in, 1974?
It really is. Didn't she say her article had to be renamed something like Getting to Know Me?
Yeah, exactly. To avoid, legal trouble.
Hmm.
That tells you a lot about the climate back then.
For sure. And yet, decades on, some of that awkwardness, that historical weight, it still kind of hangs around.
It does. And what's really striking is how relevant Dodson's perspective still feels today. She sees this book as another push towards, I think she calls it cost-effective and consistently available physical and sexual happiness.
That's a great phrase.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And her suggestion to keep the book on your nightstand, like maybe next to your vitamins or whatever,
Huh, yeah.
it just really hammers home her point about regular pleasure being key for just, well, overall well-being.
Okay, so let's dig into the book itself then. Jenny Block kicks things off by focusing on the body, on pleasure, saying that's really the only constant we have.
That's a really powerful way to frame it, right off the bat. It grounds the whole discussion.
Yeah.
It immediately takes masturbation away from being this, guilty little secret
Mm-hmm.
and positions it as something fundamentally ours. The book calls it a safety net, almost.
Right, something no one can take away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A way to reconnect, find your center when things feel, chaotic.
And she doesn't gloss over the fact that talking about this stuff can feel a bit awkward.
No. She acknowledges that ooey-gooey feeling,
Yeah.
as she puts it. But she argues that discomfort is actually part of the problem we need to address.
Makes sense.
And the core message here, I think, is about female agency. Block is really clear. Masturbation helps women remember they belong to themselves.
First and foremost.
Yeah, that they owe themselves pleasure. It's framed as an act of self-respect, really.
Absolutely. So, building on that, the book lays out a bunch of reasons why solo pleasure is important for women. What's the first big one?
Control. Specifically, control over your own orgasms. It's about being really present in your body, loving it, understanding how it works.
Uh-huh.
And she poses this really interesting question. If you don't feel in control here, is this really personal space, where else in your life might that lack of control show up?
That is thought-provoking. Reason number 2.
Self-care. She argues pretty strongly that solo sex should be part of your routine.
Just like eating well or hitting the gym.
Exactly. Just as vital for physical, spiritual, and mental well-being. And she says relying only on a partner for orgasm is, quote, downright dangerous.
Wow. Okay. Strong words again. But it highlights that self-reliance point.
It really does. It pushes back against making your sexual satisfaction totally dependent on someone else. It's about being proactive.
Right. Then there's this connection she makes between solo sex and being a better partner. How does that work?
Well, the idea is that confidence in bed often comes from knowing your own desires first. Being invested in your own pleasure. Understanding what feels good. That naturally helps you understand and, want to give pleasure to someone else too.
It becomes reciprocal.
Yeah, exactly. You're more tuned to pleasure in general, for yourself and others. It built empathy.
Interesting. Another point is about focusing just on yourself.
Yes. That time is completely free from anyone else's needs or expectations.
Which can be rare.
Totally. Any pressure just melts away. It's pure self-discovery, pure enjoyment.
And the idea is that this clearer understanding of what you enjoy can then translate back into partnered sex?
Precisely. You learn what works without any sort of performance anxiety, and you can bring that knowledge, that confidence, back into interactions with a partner.
Okay. And then she lists actual health benefits too.
Oh yeah, quite a few. It's linked to helping with pain management,
Mhm.
easing depression symptoms, helping with insomnia,
Wow.
boosting energy, even improving body image.
So it really reinforces that pleasure isn't just frivolous.
Not at all. It's integral to health. And the fact that it's, natural and always accessible, you just need yourself, that makes it pretty significant.
The book also says it's important whether you're in a relationship or single,
Yeah, definitely. It's about fostering that healthy relationship with your own body, always.
regardless of partnership status.
Right. And she makes this interesting point that orgasm and desire kind of beget more orgasm and desire. It fuels itself.
Like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
definitely counters that old wrong idea
Hmm.
that masturbating somehow uses up your desire for partnered sex.
Right, that myth. And then there's empowerment.
Huge point.
Yeah.
Knowing how to make yourself feel amazing, that builds self-worth. It's
Mhm.
a powerful internal fuel.
That sense of capability.
Yeah, self-efficacy.
Yeah.
Knowing you have this inherent power to nurture yourself.
Blog also brings up an interesting angle for young women. Something about not settling.
Yeah, she suggests that having a healthy outlet for desire through masturbation can actually empower young women.
How so?
Well, it allows them to focus on other goals, career, education, whatever, without feeling pressured to find a partner just for sexual release. It allows for more intentional choices in partners.
That flips the script a bit, doesn't it? Instead of desire being a problem to manage.
Exactly. It becomes a tool for autonomy.
And then the point about privacy. It's your business.
Fundamentally, it's personal. She does say talking about it can help others, break down stigma,
Sure.
but ultimately, you don't owe anyone that conversation. It's totally up to you.
And perhaps the most crucial point, no shame.
Absolutely zero shame. She's really passionate about dismantling that baseless societal guilt that's clung to female self-pleasure for so long.
It's about reclaiming it as natural and healthy.
Totally. And vital in a world that constantly tries to pull our attention outwards. Knowing your body intimately is key.
Becoming disconnected is so easy.
It really is. So this act of self-exploration is a way to reconnect, to really feel your own responses.
And it all seems to circle back to self-confidence.
Yeah, that internal knowing. Knowing how to pleasure yourself makes you feel capable.
Rounded.
Right. And she even suggests that this self-knowledge makes you kind of immune to haters, or at least less bothered by external negativity,
Interesting.
like a shield.
In a way, yeah. Your own experience becomes your truth, making judgment from others less relevant.
And the final point listed was about finding peace.
Yeah, just framing it as this readily available tool for centering yourself anytime, anywhere, a way to find calm.
Like personal self-soothing.
Exactly. A valuable way to manage stress and just, find a moment of peace.
Okay, let's shift to something really fundamental the book clarifies. The actual mechanics of female orgasm.
Right. Block is super clear on this. Female orgasm comes from clitoral stimulation. Period.
Directly challenging that old myth of the vaginal orgasm.
Completely debunking it. The book explains that, yes, the clitoris has internal parts, extensions.
So penetration can indirectly stimulate those internal structures. But the main event, the primary source of orgasm for most women, is stimulating the external part, the glands.
So clitoral orgasm isn't like second best.
Not at all. It is female orgasm.
Yes.
Penetration might be part of a blended orgasm, sure, involving clitoral touch and other things.
Okay.
But the idea that women regularly orgasm from penetration alone, that's largely a myth, according to the book, and frankly, the science.
So that aligns with anatomy, right? The clitoris being the pleasure center.
Exactly. Its sole purpose is pleasure, unlike the vagina, which has reproductive functions.
Okay, so how common is masturbation then? What does the book say about prevalence?
Well, the surveys cited suggest it's extremely common.
Like majority numbers.
Yeah, a clear majority of women have masturbated by adulthood. Some studies put it as high as like 91% of women over 18.
Wow, okay.
And even for older women, like over 60, it's still significant. Maybe around 46% still do.
So definitely not just a young person thing. Where do people typically do it?
The bedroom is number one, unsurprisingly. But the shower comes up a lot too, other private spots. Even in front of the computer sometimes.
Ah, okay. And frequency.
Varies hugely, as you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
The book acknowledges that survey data on this is tricky. People might under or over-report,
Sure.
but it still paints a picture of this being a very normal part of many women's lives. And Block actually did her own survey for the book too, over 160 women.
Oh, interesting. That probably adds some good firsthand detail. Okay, let's zoom out again to the societal view. The book really contrasts how male and female masturbation are treated, right?
Oh, hugely.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
stark. Male masturbation is often, joke fodder, locker room talk, whatever, casual.
Yeah.
Female masturbation, often met with silence or discomfort, or worse. The Soul of Sex and Society chapter really digs into why that is.
And religion plays a role.
Definitely. Across several major religions, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, it's often been labeled a sin.
Which adds that layer of moral weight and shame.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the book also points heavily to this historical myth of, male sexual superiority.
Okay, unpack that a bit. What was that idea?
Basically, men were seen as driven by these strong physical urges, naturally highly sexual,
Right.
whereas women were painted as more emotional, their sexuality tied mainly to pleasing men or having babies.
So women's independent desire was minimized or ignored.
Pretty much. It objectified women, reduced their sexuality to serving male needs. And within that framework, why would a woman need to masturbate, right?
If her desire isn't seen as primary.
Exactly. It maintained patriarchal control, kept male needs central. The book even mentions Rachel Main's work on the penis as a symbol of power in this historical sexual warfare.
Wow. And this ties into that awful history of hysteria.
Ugh, yes. Pathologizing female desire.
Yeah.
Diagnosing sexually frustrated women with hysteria.
And the cures were disturbing.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Doctors literally masturbating patients, manually or later with devices.
Mhm.
It's shocking. It shows how female desire outside the expected norms was treated like a sickness.
Just horrifying. But it wasn't all negative throughout history. The book mentions some counterpoints.
No, thankfully not a total monolith. There are depictions of women masturbating in ancient Greek art, for instance.
Okay.
Later, people like Havelock Ellis saw it as a stress reliever, if done moderately.
And then in the 20th century.
You get figures like Kinsey, Wilhelm Steckel seeing it as natural.
Hmm.
Feminists like Stella Brown saw it as crucial for women's autonomy over their sexuality.
But there were setbacks too, like Freud.
Yeah, Freud's focus on the vaginal orgasm as superior was definitely a step back, scientifically speaking. But then Masters and Johnson's research really supported masturbation. And of course, Betty Dodson's work has been huge in empowering women.
It's such a fascinating, complicated history. What did Bloch's own survey find about the messages women got growing up?
Yeah, it's pretty revealing.
Mm.
Lots of negative stuff. Being told it was wrong, sinful, even harmful. Some got that insane misinformation about it causing cancer.
Yikes.
Others just got silence, which speaks volumes too. Or they were told only boys do it.
Right.
And one really grim quote mentioned hearing men dismiss it as something desperate women do.
Those early messages stick, don't they?
They really can. Which brings us back to Betty Dodson's wisdom on why acceptance is so key for psychological health.
What is her take?
She talks about establishing neural pathways for pleasure. She blames shame and fear from upbringing for why some women don't masturbate or enjoy it.
Makes sense.
And her advice for talking to daughters.
Yeah.
Basically, don't bring it up unless asked. But if asked, frame it as totally natural, healthy, and positive.
Simple and destigmatizing. Love that. Okay, let's talk science again, the benefits.
Right. Orgasm itself is a natural stress buster, pain reliever, releases endorphins, boosts mood.
Good stuff.
Plus, sexual activity, including solo, increases blood flow, which is good for vulvar and vaginal health. And again, science confirms. Female orgasm, clitoral stimulation.
And the book points out that even after partnered sex, some women masturbate to finish.
Yeah, which really highlights that gap between what we often call sex, penetration, and what actually brings many women to orgasm.
Underscores the need for better understanding of female pleasure.
Absolutely. And this isn't static, right? The book talks about how masturbation evolves through life.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, it starts with just becoming comfortable with your body as a kid, then managing desires as a teen, figuring out what you like as a young adult, learning to communicate that in relationships, and then maintaining sexuality later in life, maybe after losing a partner or other changes. It adapts.
That makes sense. It serves different roles.
Okay.
Let's get practical. Methods and accessories. What's the vibe in the book?
The vibe is definitely pleasure is the goal, orgasm might follow, explore everything.
Nice.
It encourages trying different ways to stimulate the clitoris, really discovering your own map. She even suggests keeping a masturbation diary.
To track what works.
Yeah, exactly. And it mentions things beyond hands, rubbing against pillows, even using vibrations from like a washing machine sometimes. Whatever works.
Okay. And toys. They're much more mainstream now.
Totally. The book embraces them as great tools, especially if you're short on time or just want a different sensation.
What kinds does it mention?
It gives a basic overview. External vibrators, internal ones, dildos, anal plugs. But the key advice is warm up first, maybe with hands.
Right.
And remember, you can combine things. Fingers inside, vibrator outside, whatever feels good. There's no right way.
It's all about personal pleasure. Makes sense. But it's not just physical, right? The mind plays a huge part.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Getting your brain on board is essential for arousal, for orgasm.
So how do you do that?
The book suggests things like setting the mood, making sure you're comfortable, focusing on your breath, letting go of distracting thoughts, not judging yourself, really scanning your body for sensations, tuning in
Fantasy.
big time. The power of the mind. The book even includes some story starters to get the imagination going.
Oh, really? Like what?
Things like Beautiful Bound, The Dressing Room, The Sex Exam. You'll do as I say, if only for one night. They cover different scenarios. Power play, exhibitionism, forbidden desire.
Wow, quite a range. Shows how diverse fantasy can be.
Exactly. Anything that turns you on mentally is fair game.
The book also tackles some common questions, which is super helpful, like frequency.
Yeah, that how often is normal
Yeah.
question. The book kind of says, well, once a day seems like an excellent guideline, but stresses it's totally individual.
And what about too much?
The benchmark is basically, if it's interfering with your job, relationships, other important parts of life, then maybe it's too much for you. Otherwise, it's fine.
And the why bother question gets answered again.
Firmly, it's vital self-care. End of story.
Does it touch on safety or squirting?
Briefly, yeah. Basic hygiene, using condoms on toys for internal use. And squirting is mentioned as related to G-zone stimulation, but presented as something some women experience, not like a universal goal or standard.
Gotcha. Normalizing it without making it a requirement.
Exactly. Oh, and she includes a playlist of songs that might have masturbatory themes.
Aha, that's fun. What about personal stories? Are there quotes from women?
Loads. And they're really powerful. Women sharing their first times, some accidental as kids, some much later, sharing their current routines, toys they use, fantasies they have, and just how they feel about it. Empowered, normal, liberated. It really makes it relatable.
That diversity of experience is important to see. Okay, what about masturbation within relationships? That can be a tricky area.
Definitely. The book tackles it head on. First point.
Yeah.
Lots of partner people still masturbate. It's normal.
And why do they?
All sorts of reasons. To keep their own sex drive hunting, take pressure off partnered sex sometimes, stay healthy, just stay in touch with their own body.
Makes sense. Does it talk about mutual masturbation?
It does. As a way to mix things up, have a quickie, learn about each other. It gives advice on how to talk to your partner about it too, address any insecurities they might have.
Communication is key there.
Always. And survey takers shared how doing it with a partner can be great, helps with long distance, helps partners learn what feels good.
That's a great point. Partners learning by watching or participating.
Exactly. It can be really intimate and instructional.
The book also mentions how practices change over time, personal journeys.
Yeah, I like that part. People reflecting on how things shifted with age or new relationships or just more self-discovery.
Like what kind of shifts?
Some found they focused less on just the orgasm and more on the buildup, the teasing. Others discovered new spots or techniques years later. You could also see the impact of shedding societal shame in their stories.
So it's not static, it evolves with you.
Totally. It's a lifelong relationship with your own body and pleasure.
And how does the book wrap things up? What's the final message or vision?
It frames female masturbation as, honestly, an act of rebellion.
Wow. Against what?
Against centuries of oppression, of trying to control female bodies and sexuality, it's positioned as this powerful expression of freedom.
Taking back control.
Exactly. The call to action is basically, keep talking about it, keep doing it, keep fighting body shame. The vision is a world where everyone understands they're responsible for their own pleasure.
Which leads to healthier relationships overall.
That's the idea. More egalitarian, more fulfilling sex lives for everyone when pleasure isn't solely dependent on a partner or shrouded in shame.
So wrapping up our own deep dive here, it's clear from Jenny Block's book that female masturbation is way more than just, getting off.
Oh, absolutely. It's tied into self-discovery, empowerment, health, even challenging societal norms.
Yeah, the source really gave us that full picture, the history of suppression, the science backing it up, and just how diverse and normal it all is.
And for listeners, maybe think about those points we discussed. Control, self-care, knowing your own body, How do those ideas land with you?
Do they shift anything in your own understanding?
Right. The book really pushes back on female sexuality being secondary. It says self-pleasure is fundamental to well-being.
So, what stood out most to you personally from our chat today? Or what questions are maybe still floating around?
Yeah, definitely keep exploring if this sparks something. Go back to Block's book, check out Betty Dodson's stuff, look at the resources listed,
There's a lot out there once you start looking.
for sure. And maybe a final thought to leave folks with.
Okay.
Given that long history we talked about, society trying to control female sexuality, could it be that just embracing your own solo pleasure, privately, quietly,
Mm.
is actually one of the most powerful forms of personal, maybe even political agency we have?
Mm. That's definitely something to chew on, a simple act with potentially profound meaning.
Yeah, just something to consider.